Today's guest is known as America's decision expert. He is an ER doctor and author of the bestsellers Training Your Mind for Split Second Decisions and Fast Decisions, Think Fast. Be bold, be fearless. Okay, so Dr. Geoffrey is, really inspiring. He kicks off the episode by talking about how he had a stutter as a child and how that forced him to start thinking very succinctly because he only wanted to give short answers all the time. And, over the course of his career, all the way going to Harvard and becoming an ER doctor and having to make so many quick decisions and high stakes situations that led him to this place in his career. And he has now trained many on this topic. So we're going to get into what we want to be thinking about in terms of the decisions that we're making in our lives. And as I say in the episode, you'll hear me, this was something that I really struggled with for a long period in my life because I had very intense codependent patterns. And in those patterns, I would just basically try to have somebody else make the decision for me. Right. And so this has been a huge part of my journey is like, no, make the decision now. Like, what do you want? What do you think? And it's okay if it's not the perfect right answer, which he's going to get into. So if you can relate to that at all the way to maybe you have a profession in which you have to make high stakes, fast decisions, I think you'll really enjoy this episode and Dr. Geoffrey's work. So let's go ahead and get into it. Here is Dr. Geoffrey. This episode is brought to you by Peluva. So Peluva, Peluva, those are Mark Sisson's new zero drop minimalist shoe with that distinctive 5-toe design. I have been loving them. I've been a longtime fan of barefoot shoes, and I was very resistant to the little 5-toe articulation personally at first, because just being real, I thought they looked really nerdy, and I was like, oh man, yeah, I love Mark so much, and I get what he's doing, but I'm not wearing those nerdy shoes. And then Brad Kearns, who's also involved with that project, was like, no, Tara, you got to try them. Tara, you got to try them. Tara, just come on, try them. And I tried them, and I kid you not, I enjoy them so much that I actually like how they look now. Weirdly, I can tell. So like the purpose of that 5-toe articulation is so that your toes can move more dynamically. So with other barefoot shoes, like I've been a long time fan of Vivos, and I'm still a big fan of Vivos, but they have just that big toe box, right? Which is awesome. So I didn't really feel like the 5-toe articulation was necessary, to be honest. But as I've worn them, I have experienced how awesome that is. It was actually been quite surprising for me. And I wore them this morning. I wear them all the time, and I'm really, really enjoying that freedom of movement on my toes. So, Brad and I have been going back and forth. I'm like, dude, I actually love them. And he offered to sponsor the podcast with Peluva and also offer you guys a 15% off code, which I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, I will gladly introduce my people to Peluva shoes. So you can use code Coach Tara at peluva.com, or you can just go to peluva, peluva.com/Coach Tara, and you can get that 15% off discount. Make sure you snag some of the socks while you're there, because you're going to need the toe socks. Okay. All right, let's get into the episode. Okay, so Dr. Geoffrey, making split-second decisions. I'm excited to jump into this with you. I can't even imagine the level of pressure of split-second decisions that you've had to make so many times in emergency medicine. So can you give us a little background as what took you from just being an ER doc to what you're doing now with writing books and teaching people how to make split-second decisions and make better decisions for their lives?
Sure. First, thank you for having me on your show. And I've watched and researched you, and congratulations, you are adding a lot to this world. So
Thank you.
Kudos to you. And so let me answer your question with just a short story. What you may not know about me yet is that I am a congenital stutterer. I could not speak a complete sentence without stuttering until I was 32 years old. The reason why that's important is because growing up a stutterer, the bullies would always tease you. And so therefore, you would only speak when you had to. And when you had to, you made sure you had short, succinct statements. As a result of having short, succinct statements, it forced me to improve my critical thinking skills. That just came natural. Improve my critical thinking skills, I get good in math. I get good in math. The next thing I know, I go to Hampton and I major in math. I go to Harvard and I choose to be an emergency medicine doc. And what do ER doctors do? Short, succinct thoughts and critical care decision making. And as a result of doing that for 25 years and being in charge of Ebola for Washington, D.C., and being in charge of mass casualties, I started to do research as relates to decisions, especially those fast ones. And so the next thing I know, I'm off to the races. I have the bestseller Split Second Decisions, and I have the new one, Fast Decisions. Think fast, be bold, and be fearless.
Wow, what a journey you've been on. Man, that's really incredible. Can you, I mean, I don't know if you care to share, but can you share some of your journey of getting past the stuttering? Like you're, that's,
Oh, wow. I think that you asked that because you're wise and you're insightful. You're right. So it was a journey. And what I would highly encourage your audience to like think about, not everyone's going to be able to manage this or to handle this, is that when you're going through something, you may not realize it, but it's for your good. Meaning that God, because we have a good God, everything that happens to you is for your good. It just may not be your immediate good. And so while I didn't land my plane, let me land it now. Without the stuttering, I never would have built the skills necessary to be an ER doctor. And while I was going through it, I didn't know it. It wasn't until I was much older where I was like, wow, the stutter is my superpower.
mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Yeah, great reminder for all of us. It's real hard to see it when you're in it, but
Oh,
afterwards
it
it's like,
is.
hmm, all right. Sometimes you don't want it to be that way. It's like, no, this sucks, and that's just how it is. But I believe the same thing. It's all happening for our highest interest. So,
Oh, I'm going to use that. That sounds better. It's it's happening for a higher interest. That lands much better. I like that. I like that. Good, good.
thanks. Okay, so decision making. Where should we start? What are some of the basic principles that people need to be thinking about? Actually, wait, let's back up from that. Why might you entice someone to be thinking about being able to make better, quick decisions?
Oh, I love that. All of us are products of our decisions. Only the successful people like to admit to it, though. But we're the sum total of our decisions. And so, what we need to like recognize is that our thoughts are creative. And so our thoughts help determine our decisions. So if you have good thoughts, your decisions are going to be better. And I need to end where I finish. We're the product of our decisions. And most people think the goal is for a decision to be right or wrong. No, you would ideally like for it to be like right, but the goal is for you to have it be as optimal as possible. And when it's not, know that you're learning a lesson from it, and don't be too hard on yourself.
Yeah, that paralyzed me forever. That right, or is this the right decision or the wrong decision? And like my spiritual guidance had to come in a lot. It was just like, it there's no right or wrong. It's whatever you choose. What do you, with the information that you have and the gut feelings that you have, which way do you choose right now? And it's okay if, it ends up you learn something and you change your mind. You can change your mind. It's okay. Like, that was a huge analysis paralysis thing for me a long period in my life. Is this right or wrong? Yeah, so thank you for highlighting that. So if the first thing I'm hearing is it's not about right or wrong. It's about, what did you say? Optimal?
Making the most optimal decision. But you said something very profound that people need to hear again. You are making the decision based upon the information that you have available to you. And so what ends up happening is that the people will make the decision. It doesn't give them the outcome that they expected. And then they say, well, how could I have done that? Oh, don't forget, wait a minute. You made the decision based upon what was available to you. You didn't purposely do yourself in. So I would encourage people, give yourself grace. You're not
Mhm.
God. Only God is always right. And so if you develop the mindset of either win or I learn, it becomes easier. There's no such thing as losses. Either you win or you learn. And so it makes life a little easier.
Yeah, that's really going to take away that hesitation or avoidance of even making a decision, because that's where I would land when I was in that framework. I would just try to not make a decision. Which, as we know, is making a decision to completely avoid and let life have its way with you. Or so yeah, it's going to build a friendlier relationship with decision making when there's not so much pressure, because you're not afraid that you're going to shame and guilt yourself later
Yeah.
on. Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
huge.
And then to your earlier question, so there are three broad decisions that we usually have. Those are the ones of low consequence, such as what to wear, what to eat. Those mean nothing. I would encourage people to spend no time on those. And then the medium ones, where there are medium consequences, such as what job to take or whether or not you're going to go here or there on vacation. Don't spend too much time on those, because at the end of the day, that decision in the long run, it's not going to matter much. But it's those decisions, the third category, where there are severe consequences: who to marry, whether or not to have a child, whether or not to buy a new house, and where. Those are the decisions that you want to spend most of your time on, because otherwise you're going to experience decision fatigue. My point is, spend time on those decisions that matter. The low and medium rarely have a long-term consequence to you.
Mm. Okay, so when somebody's in that moment where you have to make a split second decision, right? Like it's like you don't get to sit there and mull about this, And I can't even imagine how many of these you have had as an ER doctor. What do people need to consider as what's happening inside of them that determines how they make those decisions?
Oh, there's a whole neurotransmitter process going on. But let me just give people one framework that I would recommend. It's called the DPD framework. And that's deep breathing, pause, and decide. Let me
Mm,
explain. The deep breath gives your mind access to a part of your brain called the locus ceruleus that slows your heart rate down. It also gives your subconscious access to your hypothalamus. That's your emotional center. Pause. 92% of our decisions are emotional. Unpause. So the reason why you want access to that is you want to slow that down and make sure that you control it. So you take a deep breath, and the deep breath does all that. Then you pause, and then you decide. People say, well,
mm,
is it that easy? Yes. Because what ends up happening is, if you wait too long, a different part of your brain takes over and fear sets in. So now all of a sudden you are confused. So if you just take a deep breath, pause, and decide, and by the way, the deep breath also gives you access to your subconscious. And your subconscious, it remembers everything that has ever happened to you, everything you've already read. And so the decisions are already there. You just have to access them. And the deep breath gives you a moment.
yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite quotes is it's from like a Sherlock Holmes TV show, but it says, intuitions represent too many data points for the conscious mind to comprehend at once.
Love it. That's exactly it. That is exactly it. That's
So
exactly it.
yeah, so there's an aspect of what I'm hearing and what you're saying of like trusting your gut, but what that really is not letting the analytical mind and fear take over. It's embracing or utilizing all of those data points that are going to give you that immediate knowing before you can start over analyzing and getting an analysis paralysis and all of those kind of issues.
Absolutely. And as you talked about earlier, once you're ready, decide, but be ready for your next decision, regardless of the outcome. Sometimes people decide, it doesn't give them their outcome. Oh, they want to lick their wounds. They're so upset. No, every decision leads you to the next decision. And as I talked about in my book, Fast Decisions, the sooner you make a decision, in case it doesn't give you the outcome you want, you have more time to make another decision.
Mm. So is that how it kind of plays into these bigger life decisions? Like meaning, okay, I'm looking at maybe buying a house or something, right? It's like, well, my decision right now is breathe, pause. Okay, this feels like the right direction, right? So that's where it is. I'm going to go ahead and go to that meeting with the loan officer or whatever. But now you're free to make the next decision. So when the loan officer says, well, actually, you're going to have a 35% interest rate or whatever, you're like, breathe, pause. That's a no for me, right? So is that what I'm hearing? You're just kind of going in this sequence. So you're not so caught up
Absolutely.
on that first decision. Am I even going to do this or not? Well, right now I'm going to do this. Now I'm here.
Absolutely. Yep. And when you have time to breathe and then say, I want to step away and think about this. It's mainly in those situations where time is a factor. Because although I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned those three categories, once you add the concept of the time pressure variable, it becomes different. You apply that to the category where there are severe consequences, then it becomes pressure filled, and then time is an issue. And the DPD process, it really works. So when you have time, it is okay. But as you talked about earlier, but still be aware of analysis of paralysis, because either way, you got to keep deciding and keep moving.
Mm, okay. Yeah, so you're really hitting on like big consequences. There's no time to really think about it. Do you do a lot of training with like other, like emergency personnel or, the firemen or emergency first responders and stuff like that?
In fact, I used to be responsible for all the 1,300 firefighters in Washington, D.C., and I trained all of them. And I've trained, done about 30 to 40 sessions where I train first responders, and they are good, but sometimes they need coaching because they're always worried about someone looking over their shoulder and second guessing what's going to happen. And you can imagine being an ER doctor, everyone's always second guessing us. I would have done this, I would have done that.
Mm,
Well, if I had hours, I would have done that too. But I
hmm
only had about 30 seconds to decide, am I going to give them blood or am I going to give them IV fluids? What's my point is that people are always going to second guess you. But here's the point: what other people think about you is none of your business because you can't control their thoughts, right? So
right.
you have to do what's optimal for you and be comfortable with you.
Mm. Okay, so you're kind of hitting on something that I would like to explore more of what keeps us, what blocks us from me. So one of them hearing is this fear that other people are going to judge me for the decision that I make. What other kind
Mhm.
of blocks do you find come into people's psychologies and being able to make quick decisions?
Do you mind if we stay with fear for a moment and I make a few comments about fear?
Yeah.
So fear is a big one. Let me tell you why. So they say we have 27 different human emotions, 27 different human emotions. And so let's just look at that. So there's love. God created love. And so that we could experience love, he created fear. Because if you don't have two, you don't know what love is. So therefore, he like created fear. We were only born with two natural fears: the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling down. That means that any other fear you have was self-created. And if it were self-created, you can fix it as well. And what the reason why that's important is that some people are sitting there thinking, well, she did this to me. He touched me. He left me. And while that is unfortunate, I'm very sorry about that. You still have to be able to move past fear because we only have two natural fears. Any other fears were self learned, self created, regardless of the circumstances. You still have to be able to move past fear.
Mm.
Did I answer did I
Yeah,
answer
yeah.
your
Fear
question?
fear paralyzes. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's probably they all would root to fear because to me like once we're out of I look at fear as separation from God or source or universe or however people look at it, right? Like love is like you're here. And then if it's a spectrum and you can move further away from that, that's fear. So anything that's going to be causing you to feel paralyzed or unsure or just in all these energies that don't serve us, you're just going to be more separate from that. But when you're in that closer to God or universe or source or whatever people call like you are going to have a lot more clarity in that space. So fear probably sums it up.
Here comes it up, and faith. Because everybody, I'm sure, Coach, I'm assuming you have experienced this with like some of your clients. Everyone says they have faith until their faith is tested.
Yeah.
Right. And so having faith that everything is going to be all right, or that the world's working for your good, helps you overcome fear. Because don't get me wrong, we all have fear. Um, Quick story: I was working at a trauma center in Hagerstown, Maryland, about 2 months ago. I went to go see the patient. The chart said laceration to his nose. Okay, cool. I go see him. There's a guy standing next to this guy. The guy is like on a stretcher, and I said, "He got something on his nose." I said, "So can I see your nose?" He pulls it up, and he has a big laceration through his nose. I said, "What happened?" He said, "As I was stabbing this guy, he wouldn't let me stab him, so he kept biting me, and he bit so part of his nose was off, and he
Wow.
was serious." And so I said, "Seriously, tell me what happened." And he jumped at me. So why don't you believe me? Felt fearful of me. Because as it turns out, his story was true. The point of that is that we all experience fear in some kind of way. But as long as you're able to move past it, because often fear comes up at unexpected times.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's why it's so important to have that connection to self, right? I imagine in that moment, of course, you're going to feel fear when someone's says that and starts kind of coming at you a little bit. That's a natural reaction, but the connection to yourself is what helps you navigate that in a more grounded and centered way.
Connection to, how did you just phrase it? A connection to God.
And
I know
you're
that
right,
God is always working for my good. And
right.
knowing that means that, hey, I always have to move past fear. Keep moving.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of self trust in that, right?
Yeah.
A lot.
And that comes with time because many people they go through issues in life. And when you go through a period of time, you feel a little insecure. And that's okay. That's when you lean on your faith. And as you get past that difficult time, believe it or not, if you start off here, when you go past that, you're going to be up here. Your strength, your mindset is going to be even stronger and better. You just have to hold on and get past that difficult time because I'm sure that you've learned this. Every Everything has a season, meaning that nothing lasts forever. If it's bad, it's going to get good at some point. You just have to hold on.
Mm. I'd like to change gears with you a little bit because I saw an article that you wrote about things that are vying for our attention and stealing our attention. And I think this is very closely interwoven with our ability to make decisions, right? Because I don't know about you, but if I'm scrolling social media, I'm not really thinking about the important decisions I need to be making for my life. And do you know the article I'm talking about with like
Yes.
the phones and screens? Would you mind sharing your thoughts about all that?
So in life, we have a certain amount of attention, energy, and time. And so if we allow scrolling, cell phones, friends to disrupt that, it limits our ability to make decisions. Why? Because we are distracted. For example, studies show that, for instance, for anybody who does intense work, just having your cell phone in the room with you, in the same room with you, it decreases your productivity by 43%.
Wow.
Whereas if you put it in a different room, you're not distracted, your mind is free, and you're able to focus on and make decisions about what you are working on. Let me land my plane. Making sure that you limit your distractions is key, whether that's a phone or whether that's even toxic friends, toxic relationships. You've got to limit that so that you can maximize you.
Mm. Yeah, I like that you're talking about even when you're hanging out with people, there's like an internal skill required there of like, can I be with others? And this is when one I've really had to work on in my life of like, especially with my kids or, my good friend. It's just like, I am so dropped in. I just lose all sense of anything else outside of that moment. But I've had to learn the skill. It's kind of a little bit people pleasing or codependency trickling in there where would often like stay up much later than I normally would. I'm not thinking about the fact that I need to get up early and, I'm just kind of lost in it. Right. And I realized that was a skill I needed to develop in myself of being able to make those decisions, even when I'm dropped in. And that's all beautiful. And that's great that you're dropped in with your friends and family, and being able to like stay connected to self enough to make those decisions of like, yes, this is really fun. And I'm going to go to bed at 9. So like now I'm going to have to say, hey, I know we're watching this movie, but I got to go to bed. Right. That kind of decision making stuff I've noticed like needs to be a part of even social interactions, right? Being connected oneself that way. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so what you're really talking about are your habitual habits and your habitual thoughts. So if you get in the habit of training your mind, I'm going to bed at 9 o'clock, no matter what's going on, because it's a habit and it's a thought, your subconscious is going to remind you, hey, I've got to go to bed. So there's another simple decision that you don't have to worry about because you have trained your mind. So what you said makes exact sense. Is making sure that you're aware of the decisions that you need to make daily that will impact your life as well.
Mm. So, last question on the fast decisions. Is this where you're talking about like the breath, how breath comes into play, or like, you know, writing a whole nother book about fast decisions? Like, tell me more about this. Like, what caused you to go so much into not just decision making, but fast decisions? Like,
Oh, great question. So the first book, Train Your Mind for a Split Second,
mm-hmm,
decisions that dealt with moments. So in other words, we make about 35,000 decisions every single day. Most of them are mundane and inconsequential and don't even matter. But about 1 to 2% of those were life changing and life altering. And those were in that third category. Those were major consequences. But you add the time pressure variable on them. Whereas with fast decisions, what it really should have been called is faster decisions, meaning that often people take too long to make a
mm.
decision. And you touched on it earlier. Basically, no decision is a decision, or
Mm-hmm.
a delayed decision is a decision. People say, well, what does that mean? It means that if you don't make the decision, then as you said, coach, the environment's going to make the decision for you, or maybe somebody less skilled is going to make the decision for you. So in fast decisions, we give you a framework for how to go about making decisions. But not only that, it's a framework that takes a few weeks for you to teach your body, teach your mind, hey, I need to be ready for this. Because one thing that we do know is fast and multiple decisions are coming. So start training yourself and
Mm-hmm.
start teaching yourself so that you're ready for that moment.
I think that's like really powerful medicine for especially people who have been raised in situations in which they felt like they didn't have a lot of say, or like their say wasn't respected, or they lived in this is what I'm supposed to do kind of energy. That was definitely my path, and a lot there had to be so much brain retraining for me on like, oh, I can feel this, I don't know what to do, and my old pattern is just like to just leave it like that. And I'll
Mhm.
just not think about this as much as I can and just stick my head in the sand. And I just am okay with saying I don't know what to do. And, as I got into business and just maturing more in my life, it was just like, you can't, this can't be. But like, decide
Mhm.
now, decide as quickly as possible. And man, it's so stress relieving living like
Tell, see?
because you
Yeah.
don't have things looming over you in the background. And I'm not saying I don't fall into this sometimes, but that has been a huge piece of work because it is a habit. Like you were saying, it's a habit to when it gets hard and I'm not sure what to do. My habit is to just say, throw up my arms and say, I don't know. And that creates a very, very, very stressful life. Very
Now, how long did it take you? Because you just said that you had to change. How long was
Years. I'm still in it. That's what I'm saying. I still see myself doing it sometimes. It's like, ooh, that's uncomfortable. I don't want to say that. I don't know. Which one would be, but I still fall into it sometimes. But I'd say I'm, you know, light years ahead of where I used to be. I was really, really in this very codependent. Somebody else will make the decision for me, and I'm totally okay with that. In fact, I like being like that because then that makes me more likable and safe if other people get their way all the time. I was very codependent, not pretty, very codependent, right? And so that has been a huge piece of work for me, but it shows up in sneaky ways, right? And
Mhm.
especially in business or, someone's work life or, family matters and things like that. It's like, no, don't leave this looming. Like, we need to address this right now, And so for me, my goal, I guess, would say was to handle as many things right now as I possibly can and not save it for later, right?
Mhm.
Everything was saved for later before. And so I just had this
Mhm.
looming, overwhelming stress all the time of all these things I needed to think about and sort out. And it was horrible, you know?
Mhm.
So I think, like, I'm just saying that for anybody listening who might be in that boat that may have developed those habits due to whatever life circumstances they found themselves in, that your books are probably going to be very inspiring in terms of learning a new way of being and having an actual strategy for how to conceptualize that and then act on it. So, yeah.
I love that, and thank you for like sharing. Because in other words, what you say is decide or die. And when I say die, I don't necessarily mean death. You may lose that investment. You may lose that
Mhm.
client because you haven't decided. And what I think was profound that your audience should really take from what you said, I'm still learning. And it took me many, many years. Well, we're all evolving
Mhm.
creatures. We're always learning, but a trip of 1,000 miles starts with one step. So someone should not think, I've got it, it's going to take me years. No, just start. Take that first step. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So don't view the whole journey. Just take
Mhm.
that first bite, and you are slowly going to improve. And I'm sure that you can testify. Once you start to improve, those wins start to come sooner and sooner because you're just making decisions and you're making them faster.
Yeah. Maybe we can challenge the audience if you're listening. Think of something that is going on in your life right now that you've been avoiding making a decision on. Identify that. And Dr. Joffrey, what do you have? Just what counsel do you have for them on that
I'll
one
say
thing?
my 10-second rule. The 10-second rule is this: decide what the decision is, give yourself 10 seconds. At the end of that 10 seconds, choose one or the other. It's that simple. So, well, why 10 seconds? Because after about 10 seconds, those fear hormones start to set in. And in that 10 seconds, your subconscious has the answer. But if you don't go ahead and listen to that subconscious, those fear hormones will disrupt that answer. So give yourself 10 seconds and decide and keep it moving. And guess what? If you're right, you win. If it didn't give you the outcome, then you learned a lesson.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. We're going to link up your books in the show notes, and your website, anywhere you would direct them to from here.
Yeah, I would encourage them to go to shieldvitamins.com. Again, shieldvitamins.com. But most importantly, if they go to fastdecisionsbooks.com, fastdecisionsbooks.com, boom, that is where they can go.
Amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you got so much on your plate, so I appreciate you coming and sharing with us today on the wisdoms that has taken you decades to be able to deliver this message. So much
Well,
appreciated.
actually, your wisdom kept me on track. So continue to do what you're doing because you elevated this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Inside Out Health Podcast. I hope it's been helpful to you in your journey. If you think that it might be helpful to someone you know, please share it with them. Please share on social media. It really helps me grow the show and reach more people with these amazing messages. And if you could be so kind as to rate the show and possibly even leave me a review, that really helps. So much thanks in advance if you do that. And yeah, please subscribe if you want to hear more of this type of content. I have lots of amazing expert guests on the way. All right. Thank you.